Have you ever stopped to wonder if certain things you're doing, things that feel normal, routine, even harmless, might actually be making people quietly pull away from you? It's a difficult thought, but an important one. As we move into our later years, we often become more set in our ways. We develop patterns of speech, behaviors, or daily habits that feel like second nature. And while many of these are harmless, even comforting, some of them slowly become blind spots. You might think you're just being yourself, just living life as you've always done, but others might be quietly adjusting to how you've changed without ever saying a word. That's what makes these habits so dangerous. Not because they make you a bad person, but because they slowly chip away at how others connect with you. This video is going to gently uncover 12 subtle, often unnoticed habits that older adults can develop over time. Habits that make others uncomfortable, but that rarely get mentioned. Not because people don't care, but because they don't know how to say it without hurting your feelings. I'm not talking about physical appearance either. I'm talking about the way we carry ourselves, the way we speak, the energy we bring into a room, and how all of it silently affects the way others perceive us. The goal here isn't to shame you or make you feel like you're doing life wrong. It's to give you a gentle mirror, one that helps you ask, is this still serving me? And could this habit be making the people I care about feel more distant? The good news? These patterns are almost always reversible. All it takes is awareness and a willingness to make small, intentional changes that can lead to deeper connection, more dignity, and more joy in your relationships. Let's begin with one of the most common and most quietly damaging habits, neglecting personal hygiene. Now, I know this might be a hard one to hear. Nobody sets out to look unkempt or uncared for. But over time, as routines shift and energy levels wane, small changes start to show. Clothes get worn more than once without a wash. Hair goes unbrushed. Fingernails get longer than usual. And sometimes, let's be honest, there's a scent that lingers a bit too long after you leave a room. These may seem like small things, but to others, they speak volumes. It's not just about appearance, it's about presence. Hygiene tells people how much you care, not just about yourself, but about the people around you. In younger years, we keep up with grooming almost automatically. But as we age, it can start to feel less important. We think, why bother? I'm not trying to impress anyone, but here's the truth. People around you still notice, and they react. Family members may start visiting less, friends might hug you a little less often, and strangers might create just a little more space between you and them. Not because they don't love you, but because they're quietly responding to the message you're sending. It's a message that says, I've stopped caring. And that's heartbreaking, because you deserve to be seen, valued, and embraced. Maintaining basic grooming doesn't require perfection. It just takes intention. A fresh shirt, washed hair, clean hands. These small acts say, I still respect myself, and I respect you too. When you show up with that kind of self-respect, others naturally respond with warmth, attention, and dignity. You don't need fancy clothes or expensive cologne, just a sense of pride in yourself. The kind that says, I'm still here and I still matter. Now let's move to the second habit that can slowly erode connection without you even realizing it. Speaking without a filter. As we get older, the mental voice that used to say, maybe don't say that out loud, tends to quiet down. It becomes easier, even natural, to just speak your mind freely. You may feel like you've earned the right to be blunt, and maybe you have, but the people around you, they may feel something very different. That kind of unchecked honesty can easily come across as critical, sarcastic, or harsh, even when you mean well. Comments about someone's weight, appearance, lifestyle, or choices might roll off your tongue easily, but to the person hearing them, they can sting deeply. And what's worse is, they probably won't tell you. They'll just slowly start avoiding certain conversations. Calls get shorter, visits become less frequent, invitations stop coming. They're not being rude, they're trying to protect themselves. And that quiet distance is one of the loneliest things a person can feel. You might say, I'm just being honest, or people are too sensitive nowadays. But the truth is, Honesty without kindness is just criticism, and it doesn't build trust. It builds walls. The good news? This habit can change with one simple question. Is what I'm about to say helpful? Is it kind? You don't have to hold your tongue completely, but learning to share your truth with gentleness and remembering that your words carry power. That's where true wisdom shines. People will remember how you made them feel more than what you said. And if you want to be someone who others seek out, who people listen to and respect deeply, then speak with warmth, not sharpness. That's the kind of presence that stays with people. That's the kind of voice they'll want to hear again. Number 3, wearing clothes that no longer fit the life you're living. There's a kind of quiet comfort in routine. The same morning coffee, the same favorite armchair, the same old cardigan you've had for years. These patterns feel safe, familiar, and even grounding in a world that seems to move faster with every passing year. But clothing, unlike some habits, speaks loudly to the people around us. And while you may not notice when your pants start sagging or when your shirt fits just a little too tight around the middle, others do. They won't say anything, of course. Not your daughter, not your neighbor, and certainly not a stranger. But the message they receive is crystal clear. This person may have stopped paying attention. Now, don't get me wrong. You're not being judged for not following fashion trends or dressing like you're 25 again. But when your clothing looks worn out, missized, or stuck in a time warp, it gives off a quiet signal that you've disconnected from the present. And that's where the real discomfort creeps in. Not because anyone expects you to be stylish, but because appearance still matters, even in old age. It's not vanity, it's dignity. Clothes that fit properly, are clean, and feel current, even just a little, signal to others that you still respect yourself, that you're still engaged with life. And when people sense that, they respond with warmth, admiration, and attention. You don't need a full wardrobe overhaul. Even a well-fitting shirt, a modern pair of glasses, or replacing tattered shoes with something sturdy and clean can shift the energy completely. It's less about the fabric and more about what it says. I'm still here, and I still care. And believe it or not, that quiet confidence can shift how people treat you. In the grocery line, at family gatherings, and even in how your grandchildren look at you. Number 4, unintentionally hijacking conversations. You've lived a full life. You've seen trends come and go, survived hardships, made choices that shape generations. And with that experience comes the urge to share. And you should. Your voice matters. But sometimes, the wisdom you've earned slips into the spotlight too quickly, dominating the room before others even get the chance to be heard. You might notice it when someone younger starts telling a story, and before they get to the middle, you jump in, offering advice, drawing parallels to your own life, or correcting something they said. It's not malicious. Often, it's deeply caring. You want to save them trouble, offer guidance, or just relate. But the unintended message is that their voice doesn't matter as much. Over time, especially with family or younger people, this habit builds distance. Conversations grow shorter. They stop telling you things. They avoid topics. And you're left wondering why you're being left out. The truth is, everyone, regardless of age, wants to feel seen and heard. And when one person dominates the space, even with the best of intentions, others quietly pull back. The key isn't to stop speaking. It's to pause, to listen, to ask open-ended questions, and then let silence stretch long enough for someone else to fill it. Try asking, "What do you think about that?" Or, "How did that make you feel?" And then simply wait. That wait, that space, is where trust builds. It tells people you're not just talking at them, you're inviting them in. Ironically, the more you give people space to speak, the more they'll seek your input. You become the wise listener instead of the overtalker. You go from being someone people avoid to someone they treasure. So next time you feel the urge to jump in, hold back for a beat. Your presence doesn't need to fill every silence. Sometimes your quiet interest is the most powerful thing in the room. And now number 5, and this one stings a little, constantly criticizing kids these days. It usually starts innocently enough. You see someone glued to their phone and think, they don't know how to look up anymore. Or you hear someone talking about their job or relationships and think, they don't have a clue how the world really works. And slowly those thoughts start making their way into conversations. When I was your age, people today are so soft. Back then, we had real values. And while it might feel like you're just sharing perspective, it often lands as something else entirely: rejection. Especially for your children and grandchildren, those comments don't sound wise. They sound dismissive. They create walls. You may be trying to share values, but what they hear is criticism. That their world, their choices, their way of life isn't valid in your eyes. And so they back away. Not because they don't love you, but because they feel unseen. The irony is, every generation has thought the next one is doing it wrong. But when that critique becomes constant, it shuts down connection. It tells others, there's no room for you here, only for the past. And that message is deeply isolating. The most respected elders are the ones who stay curious, who ask questions instead of making declarations, who try to understand, not just correct. You don't have to agree with everything the younger generation does, but you can choose to stay open, to say, tell me more about that, or that's different from what I knew. How did that come about? Those words build bridges instead of walls. They create moments of connection instead of quiet resentment. And in return, you may find that your own values, your own stories, are received with far more appreciation because you've shown you care about their world too. Now, that doesn't mean you have to agree with everything younger folks are doing. It doesn't mean embracing every trend, downloading every app, or pretending to enjoy music you don't understand. But what it does mean, what truly changes everything, is choosing curiosity over criticism, asking instead of assuming, listening instead of labeling. When you shift from saying, these kids today have it easy, to asking, what's it like trying to find your way in this world today? That's when you open the door to something more than tolerance. You create a bridge, a moment of mutual recognition across generations. And people, especially the younger ones in your life, feel that shift instantly. They stop bracing for judgment and start leaning in. You go from the voice of how things used to be to the trusted guide who honors the present. Your value doesn't come from holding tightly to the past. It comes from blending what you've lived through with the world others are living in now. When people feel respected by you, especially those decades younger, they don't just tolerate you, they admire you. They come to you, not because you demand it, but because they want to. And when you let go of the need to be right about how it used to be, and instead show up with warmth and presence for how things are now, something beautiful unfolds. You become the rare kind of elder that everyone hopes to have in their life. Not the one who preaches, but the one who listens first and then speaks with the kind of wisdom that sticks. That's real influence. That's legacy. And it starts with one question asked in sincerity: what's it like for you? If you're still here, still watching, still reflecting, type the number 5 below in the comments and let me know you're with me. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, because what you're building with every quiet change matters, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Now let's move into something a little more subtle but just as impactful. Number 6, ignoring modern etiquette. There's a social awareness that goes unnoticed until it's not there. Things like speaking loudly on your phone in a restaurant, playing a video without headphones in a waiting room, standing too close in line, or interrupting someone to share your opinion loudly in a quiet cafe. Small behaviors, yes, but today they carry weight. And here's the hard truth. While decades ago people might have brushed off these moments, today's world is wired a bit differently. Expectations around public behavior have shifted. The standard for what's polite has changed. And many times, the people around you won't tell you you've crossed that line. They won't say, that's too loud. They won't ask you to give space. They'll just pull away, quietly, quickly, and label you as someone who doesn't care, or worse, someone who's out of touch. That's not fair, perhaps, but it's real. And the way we carry ourselves in public spaces now matters more than ever. Nobody wants to be that person others avoid or silently mock. But without realizing it, some older adults fall into patterns that feel normal to them and disruptive to everyone else. And the tragedy is that these moments don't reflect who you really are. They just reflect habits that haven't been updated in a while. The solution is simple but powerful. Observe. Pay attention to how others behave around you in public. Are people wearing earbuds? Are they lowering their voice when they take a call? Do they keep a certain physical distance? This isn't about pretending to be younger. It's about adapting with grace. When you carry yourself with consideration, when you show that you're still tuned into the social rhythm of today, people of all ages take notice. Your grandkids respect it, strangers appreciate it, neighbors admire it. It signals that even now you are evolving, learning, and still engaged in the world, not resistant to it. And that message, it carries far. Because dignity doesn't come from being loud or always right. It comes from presence, from the soft awareness of others, and the humility to say, maybe it's time to learn something new about how things work now. And that mindset, that humility, is what keeps your light shining bright in any room you walk into. And now number 7, one that's deeply human but easy to overlook: oversharing medical problems. Let's be honest, growing older comes with aches, diagnoses, pills, and appointments. It becomes a part of life and sometimes a part of conversation. But when every visit, every phone call, every shared meal turns into a catalog of symptoms, side effects, and upcoming surgeries, people start to emotionally check out. Not because they don't care, but because they feel overwhelmed. It starts to feel like they're sitting in a waiting room, not enjoying your presence. Now, this doesn't mean you should bottle up your experiences. You deserve empathy. You deserve someone to check in and ask, how are you feeling? But when the balance tips and your health becomes the dominant theme of your identity, the light in you gets harder to see. Conversations grow heavy. People start avoiding follow-ups or shortening the visit, not out of disrespect, but out of quiet emotional exhaustion. And that's heartbreaking because it leaves both sides feeling distant. So what's the fix? Balance. Choose your moments. Know your audience. Share your challenges, yes, but also share your joy. Share your opinion on that movie you watched, that neighbor's garden you admired, the walk you took where the breeze felt just right. Ask about other people's lives, because your value is not in your medical chart, it's in your spirit. It's in your laughter, your perspective, your memories, and your curiosity about life beyond symptoms. You don't have to pretend everything's fine, but don't let what's wrong become the only thing you talk about. There's still so much right, and when you focus on that, even just a little, you lift the room, you draw people in, you give them a reason to want to be near you, not just out of duty, but out of delight. You become someone who brings energy, not drains it. And that energy, that's what people remember. That's what keeps relationships alive. Because in a world already heavy with its own burdens, sometimes the greatest gift you can give is to be the one who still sees the good, still shares the light, and still believes there's something beautiful ahead, no matter your age. One of the most difficult things to see in ourselves, especially as we age, is when our long-held beliefs begin to harden. Not into wisdom, but into walls. These were once principles that guided your life, helped you raise children, build a career, navigate hardships, and anchor your identity. But what happens often without noticing is that those same beliefs, if left unchecked, can start to isolate you from the present moment. You might find yourself saying, "That's just how it is," or "This generation's too soft," or "I don't care what new research says, I know what's right." But while those words may feel grounded and strong to you, they often land on younger ears as dismissive, closed off, and immovable. The truth is, the world is changing faster than ever. Technology, family structures, mental health conversations, cultural values, the language we use, they're evolving every day. Holding tightly to yesterday's worldview doesn't always make you wise. Sometimes it simply makes others feel like there's no room for dialogue. And that's a tragedy because some of the richest conversations, the most profound understanding, and the deepest respect can come from intergenerational exchange. But only if you remain open. Remaining open doesn't mean discarding your values. It means being curious, being willing to say, "Help me understand," being brave enough to listen without preparing a rebuttal. And yes, sometimes it means discovering that the world hasn't gone backwards. It's just grown in ways you didn't expect. It means recognizing that your grandchildren, your adult children, your neighbors, they don't want to argue. They want to be heard without judgment. And when you can create that space, you don't just earn their respect, you deepen your relationship. The irony is, many older adults fear becoming irrelevant. But the best way to stay relevant isn't by clinging to the past. It's by being someone who continues to learn, who leads not by stubbornness, but by empathy and openness. People remember that. They admire that. Because while the world may move fast, someone who slows down to meet it with grace is never forgotten. Let's now talk about something that's easy to overlook, but impacts how others experience you daily. Awareness of space. As we age, our movements naturally slow, our reflexes change, and sometimes we grow cautious, especially when navigating crowded places. That's perfectly okay. But without realizing it, we can also become less aware of how those movements affect others. Picture this. Someone blocks an entire grocery aisle with their cart while reading the back of a soup can. Someone pauses mid-step in a crowded corridor to fix their scarf. Someone walks down the middle of a sidewalk at half the speed of everyone else, unaware that they're unintentionally slowing the flow around them. These aren't acts of malice. They're moments of distraction. But the people around you, especially strangers, often don't see it that way. They experience it as frustration. They feel inconvenienced. And rather than saying something aloud, they'll just quietly adjust. Move away. Avoid future outings. Even loved ones may start thinking, it's easier if I just run errands alone. That's the cost of spatial unawareness. Not resentment, but withdrawal. And you may never know why people stopped inviting you out. But here's the powerful part. It's an easy fix. Being aware of your body in space, of the pace of those around you, of when to step aside or when to wait before stopping, is one of the most respectful things you can do in public. It tells people, I'm still engaged. I still care how I affect those around me. And in a time where many expect older adults to be out of touch, this kind of subtle grace leaves an impression. No one expects perfection, but when people see you trying, keeping to the side of a path, making room for others, apologizing if you pause unexpectedly, they notice. And that courtesy, it stays with them. It makes them want to walk with you, sit beside you, be near you. Because they don't have to navigate around you. They get to move alongside you. That's presence. And it's a gift. Now let's move into habit number 10, and it's a sensitive one. Making jokes that don't age well. Humor is one of the best gifts to carry through life. It keeps the spirit light, softens difficult conversations, and builds bridges when words fall short. But humor also changes over time, and some jokes that once got a laugh can now feel out of touch, or worse, offensive. Maybe it's a teasing comment about someone's appearance, an offhand joke rooted in stereotypes or sarcasm that once felt harmless. You might still say, "Come on, I'm just playing," or "Back in my day, we could take a joke." But here's what's shifted. The world around you. Today, people are more attuned to how words land. They're more sensitive to inclusion, empathy, and language that respects differences. And while you might not mean harm, if someone feels hurt or uncomfortable by something you say, the damage is done. The worst part, they often won't tell you. They'll just quietly retreat, laugh awkwardly, or avoid being alone with you next time. That's how relationships erode. Not with explosions, but with subtle exits. What once was seen as humor now comes across as tone-deaf, and no one wants to be remembered as the person people had to laugh off or excuse. But this isn't about silencing yourself. It's about updating your lens. Great humor evolves. It finds new forms. It lifts the room instead of dividing it. If your jokes build connection, make people feel seen, or help them feel lighter, keep telling them. But if they leave silence, glances, or uncomfortable chuckles in their wake, it might be time to let them go. Because what makes people laugh now isn't cruelty, it's cleverness, warmth, and shared experience. And when you adjust your humor to meet the room where it's at, something remarkable happens. People laugh with you, not at you. They seek you out, not steer away. Because you're not just funny, you're kind. And that combination, it never goes out of style. Sometimes the biggest weight we carry as we age isn't physical, It's the quiet fear that we've become less useful. And in response, some older adults lean into helplessness, even when they're still capable of so much more. Maybe you've caught yourself saying things like, "Can you just do it for me?" Or, "I'll mess it up anyway," even before you've really tried. It may sound like a harmless request, even playful at first, but when it becomes a pattern, when it turns into a subtle expectation that others will do the lifting, the fixing, the figuring out, people begin to notice. At first, they step in gladly. Of course they do. They love you. They want to be there for you. But quietly over time, those gestures of support can start to feel more like obligations. Your adult children might begin to feel more like caregivers than companions. Friends may notice that the burden of planning or caring or solving always falls on them. And even if they never say it out loud, a quiet fatigue sets in. Not because they don't care, but because the balance has shifted without warning or acknowledgement. And the hardest part? You might not even realize it's happening. It's not laziness. Often it's fear. Fear of not knowing how to work the TV remote. Fear of feeling slow or silly, trying to figure out a new phone. Fear of appearing vulnerable. So instead of risking that discomfort, you hand the task off. But here's the truth. People don't admire perfection. They admire effort. Your family and friends feel pride, not pity, when they see you try. They respect you more when you say, "Let me try it myself first." When you carry your own plate, walk your own pace, or fumble your way through a new app, they don't see weakness. They see courage. They see a person who's still in the game, still determined to participate, still strong in spirit even when the body doesn't move quite like it used to. And when you ask for help only when it's truly needed, the help they give comes from a place of love, not obligation. That distinction matters, because when your requests are born of necessity, not habit, the people around you trust them. They don't feel like they're being used. They feel honored to step in, knowing you've done everything you could first. It's not about pretending you're 40. It's about preserving your dignity by knowing the difference between can't and won't. Reclaiming small tasks, watering your own plants, paying your own bills, learning how to order something online, doesn't just lighten the load for others. It rebuilds your confidence. It restores your agency. And in a world that often underestimates older adults, showing that you still value your own independence becomes a quiet act of resistance, a subtle message that says, "I may be aging, but I'm not giving up on myself." And yet there's another deeply human trap that creeps in during later years, one that can silently erode connection more than any physical limitation: the belief that you're always right. It doesn't always start loudly. Sometimes it's a simple correction at the dinner table. "No, it wasn't Tuesday, it was Wednesday." Or an insistence, "That's not how we used to do it." Or a dismissive comment about a new idea. "That'll never work." And again, your intentions might be harmless. You've seen more, lived more, weathered more storms. Of course, your voice deserves space. But when your need to be right becomes a shield you hold up in every conversation, people stop engaging. Not because they agree, but because it's easier to stay silent than to argue. And slowly, the space between you and them grows. They'll still visit, still call, but the depth fades. They stop asking for advice. They stop sharing their thoughts. And what you're left with is the echo of your own certainty bouncing around a room no one wants to linger in. The heartbreaking irony is that this rigidity often comes from fear, not arrogance. Fear that your place in the world is shrinking. Fear that your relevance is fading. So you cling harder to your opinions, trying to hold on to your identity. But the truth is, relevance doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from the ability to make space for other people's truth, even if it doesn't match your own. The people we admire most in old age aren't the ones who always win debates. They're the ones who listen with grace, who say, "That's interesting, I hadn't thought of it that way," who let younger voices rise, not because they agree with every word, but because they value the act of learning itself. And when you let go of the need to win every discussion, something beautiful happens. People start coming to you more, not out of duty, but out of genuine interest. They ask what you think because they know you'll respond with thoughtfulness, not judgment. They bring their struggles to you because they trust you won't use their vulnerability as a soapbox. You become not just someone with experience, but someone with wisdom, and wisdom, real wisdom, never needs to shout to be heard. So the next time you feel the urge to correct, to override, to say you're wrong, pause. Ask yourself, is it more important to be right or to be in relationship? Because in the end, people remember how you made them feel far longer than they remember who was factually correct. And when you choose connection over correction, your voice doesn't lose power, it gains it, because it's coming from a place of love, not control. That's what makes someone unforgettable. That's what makes someone truly wise. They value your feedback, not because you dominate the room, not because you raise your voice or insist on being heard, but because your words carry calm, thoughtful weight. Because when you speak, it's not out of pride, but perspective, not to prove, but to contribute. That's what lingers with people long after the moment has passed. They remember how your presence made them feel, not intimidated, not dismissed, but included, encouraged, understood. And when that presence is wrapped in wisdom, humility, and gentleness, it leaves a quiet mark on every room you walk into. In the end, the need to be right fades. The old urgency to correct, to argue, to win, it slowly loses its edge. What lasts instead is kindness. What remains is dignity. What people treasure is your ability to stay open. And as you grow older, that openness becomes a gift, not just to others, but to yourself. Because when you release the tight grip of how things used to be or how things must be, you make space for curiosity, for growth, for laughter, for deeper connection than you may have thought possible at this stage of life. You no longer feel like you're slipping behind the times. You begin to feel, perhaps for the first time in a long time, fully present within them. You don't fade into the background. You shine in a quieter, richer, more enduring way. That is the real beauty of aging, not in denying change, but in embracing the depth that comes with it. So now take a slow, honest breath. We've just walked through 12 subtle, sometimes uncomfortable behaviors that many people experience in their later years, often without realizing the impact. Ask yourself gently, which of these resonated the most? Which one made you pause? Not from shame, but from recognition. Maybe it's the tendency to correct others too often. Maybe it's relying too heavily on others for simple tasks. Maybe it's wearing clothes that no longer represent who you are, or defaulting to health complaints in every conversation. These are not failures. They are simply signals, small lights on the dashboard of life, telling you it's time to check in, to recalibrate, to choose again how you want to show up in this season. Because aging isn't just about the years behind you. It's about the power you still have to shape what's ahead. And that power starts with awareness. The courage to see yourself not with harsh judgment, but with honest curiosity. To say, I can shift this, or that's no longer who I want to be. That is strength. That is grace. That is how we carry our dignity forward. And the truth is, every small change, whether it's choosing kinder words, listening more than you speak, updating a piece of your wardrobe, or simply deciding to lead with warmth, these aren't cosmetic improvements. They're spiritual ones. They're the threads that stitch together a life that still feels alive, meaningful, and full of quiet influence. You don't need to do it all at once. Just begin somewhere. Because when you start shifting the way you move through the world shifts with you. People feel it. They respond differently. Conversations become easier. Connections grow stronger. And slowly you reclaim something most people think disappears with age. Your ability to be someone who still inspires others just by being yourself. So if even one part of this message touched you today, don't let it fade. Carry it forward. Let it shape the next time you speak, the way you listen, the energy you bring into a room. Because no matter your age, your presence still matters. Your influence still ripples. Your story is still being written. And how you finish that story is entirely up to you. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this video moved you in any way, please take a moment to share one takeaway in the comments. We read everyone. Your stories, your reflections, they mean more than you know. If you found value in this, Help us grow this space by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support allows us to keep creating content that honors the beauty and complexity of aging. We believe your best years aren't behind you. They're unfolding right now. Let's keep growing together. We'll see you in the next video.